Of course, you've got brands like Christian Dior, Estee Lauder, Chanel. And of course, they're beautiful brands. They're my client. I spoke for Avon 18 months ago, and 101,000 Avon representatives had access to my presentation of the Mind Makeover. What I changed was their perception and their thinking of what was acceptable performance.
You raised the bar.
Raised the bar.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of In the Arena. My name is Angela Sudi and I will be your host today. And today I have one of my most favorite people on the planet is in the arena with us. She's amazing. We met her just over a year ago, and in a very short period of time, we've become incredibly close. Her energy, her focus, her dedication for helping others and giving back is just, it's so beautiful to see. And when you see her energy, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Welcome, Sharron Lowe, to our studio today.
Thank you.
She's a global motivational speaker, she's a mind coach, and she's also a best-selling author of her own book, which is called The Mind Makeover, which we'll talk about in a moment. She's got the most amazing style when it comes to engaging her audience, teaching through real life skills, and helping to motivate and help others to achieve their dreams in life. So I can't wait to dive into this conversation. Sharron, welcome to the studio today.
Thank you. I feel so loved and so welcome.
Well, you are.
But I feel that love. And what a beautiful introduction. And I'm just going to say right back to you because we were meant to meet. There are people in our life that we're blessed to meet. And Darius and yourself are those people. And it's meant to be. So I'm just sat here feeling so blessed and really very privileged and humbled to be in this energy, because life is energy.
It is. And honestly, from my heart, and also from Darius, I can speak for him too, we feel exactly the same. We love you very much. Now, just before we go into a little bit about your business and your journey, just tell us a little bit about Sharron. Who is Sharron?
Okay, well, Sharon's really silly. I do a lot of silly things. So I'll tell you something I've done, and I think it gives everybody a real feel. You know, why do we stop being children, Angela, really? And the thing I'm going to share, you were giggling about earlier. So I flew over on Emirates, and this tells you quite a bit about my personality. And when I was 16 years old, I wanted to be an air hostess. I thought that was the best thing in the world. And I was told I couldn't. You couldn't then, because I wore glasses. So I've done so many flights around the world as a speaker, but I get on Emirates and I thought, I remember when I wanted to be an air hostess. So I borrowed one of their hats, got behind the bar and did a little role play. And it absolutely made the flight because the crew were gorgeous. They matched my energy. It was an overnight flight. And I can tell you that I had the best flight. And when I say the best flight, I had a beautiful experience. And I believe we create our experiences. So Sharon's silly. She's super focused. And I love my life. And when it's not how I love, I put everything into what would that look like?
Amazing.
And then co-create.
I love it. I have to say, by the way, you were rocking the Emirates hat. You look fabulous.
Oh, I know.
You were wasted.
I know. I'm going to stop being a speaker. And you know, I'm good with difficult customers because I don't drink, and there were a couple of people who'd had a few drinks.
Okay.
I can do that. I'd be really good. And the team was saying, you know, gentleman in 8B, can you deal with him? Not a problem.
Not a problem.
He can have a mind makeover. Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But I love that about you. I love your energy, and I know that when we actually met, you met Darius first in person at a different event. And then when he came home, he actually said to me, I've met the most incredible woman. She's aligned with our energy. She's focused, she's driven, but she's loving as well and kind and generous and all these things that you are. And then a year later, now you are talking on our stage at the Gladiator Summit, which is phenomenal. So you and I met for the first time in person in April of this year during our first event. We had been speaking back and forward, and even on messages, your energy and your authenticity, I could just feel it, even just on messages. But meeting you in person and actually seeing you for the first time, I could feel you. I could feel your energy in the room before we actually met. that's how special you are. Where do you think that comes from? Because not everybody has this light energy, this power around them. Where do you think that comes from?
Well, first of all, that is the most beautiful compliment, and I will put that in my heart. It's beautiful. But one of my passions and purposes in my life is to show and share with other people how we control our energy. And I don't get it right, Angela, all the time. And actually, the challenges I've recently had, I'm a deeper coach. I'm a deeper speaker because I've had to work with more depth on my energy. And I think this is really important. I don't ever want anyone listening to think, well, Sharron was born with that. You know, let me share with everyone. When I was born on the first day of my life and I was in the maternity hospital, there were not fairy godmothers flying around that came down and thought, this baby, we'll give her good energy. It doesn't work like this.
No.
And it's something I'm passionate about, but it's like anything in our life. And again, for your listeners, if you are passionate about something and you work on it and you build yourself in an energy, you take control.
True.
And too many people, you know, obviously I'm British and I'm based in the UK at the moment.
For now.
At the moment, universe listen. And, you know, it's very easy to get into the wrong energy. We choose the energy field. But I also have things I do. I do them more when there's a challenge. I'm not in any challenges at the moment, but I have been. And so I connect. I move away from energy that doesn't serve Sharron. You know, going back to that flight, there were a few people unhappy. It was late, you know, leaving. Well, let's bring some humor to life. Getting annoyed with the pilot doesn't get us to take off.
True.
So again, we choose our energy. And I chose humor. I chose acceptance. I have great faith. It gets stronger every day for me. And I truly believe I'm guided. I'm speaking for you at Gladiators, and it's such a privilege. I truly believe, and not everybody listening will get this, but that is my purpose. That was meant to be. I truly believe it was written before we planned it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I really do. I think the universe, I've seen that with this event, and we talked about this before, that once the seed was planted for this event, it's literally grown and taken off, of course, with us facilitating, but it's taken on a life of its own. And I think because the intention behind it is so pure, it's all about serving and giving back, that energy has helped it grow so quickly.
Yeah.
What were you like as a child? Going back before Sharron, the speaker, the confident, you know, wonderful goddess on stage came into play. What was your personality like when you were growing up? And do you feel that your relationship with either of your parents helped to bring and nurture this enthusiastic, motivated Sharron to the forefront?
I think that's a gorgeous question. I was a quiet child. I was a studious child. And I wouldn't have called me gregarious at all. My father isn't with us now. I had a very beautiful, beautiful bond with my father, and he was very entrepreneurial. Okay. And just, if I think about Joe Lowe, he was such a guide in my life and created an energy, Angela, where things were possible. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people have that energy now, but they didn't then. Their way of parenting was very different without my sister and I knowing that. Mm-hmm. And so as a child, I had incredible imagination. I'm going to share a story, which I was 8 years old, and at school we had to do a book. I still have the book, and it was My Best Life.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and
that's
it's
quite insightful.
And in this book, I've never shared this on a podcast before, but in the book, an exercise book, My Dream Life. Now, I had a normal upbringing. I had immense love and immense possibilities, but we lived a normal life. Mm-hmm. And I drew, and it's still, I can't explain this to you, I drew a double-page spread of a swimming pool. I was 8 years old, I had curly hair, big ears and braces and glasses. And I drew a swimming pool and I said, and listen to the word because I teach in a voice and I teach narrative. This is exactly how I want my pool to be. Now, really, I didn't even know in any form that homes had swimming pools. That was not on my radar.
Well, it wasn't in the UK anyway, really.
No,
Most
no.
homes do not.
No point of reference. Not one. Now, where did that come from? I had the vision. So as a little girl, I think one of the things that was in my personality, Angela, was there was something where I saw ahead. And I was never afraid of hard work. I was never afraid of getting it wrong. And I had vision. And I also had this incredible ability from my parents, who were risk takers and entrepreneurs, family business, mum and dad. And they instilled in both my sister and I, you can be what you wish to be. But we didn't have the point of reference. We didn't have social media. And I never took no. That's a big part of my character. When people said no, I didn't listen. So I went to see a great story on this. I went to see the careers teacher and I wanted to go into retail. I knew I couldn't be an air hostess. So I wanted to go into retail. And there was a book and it was this huge book. And in that book was a photograph of Harrods perfumery. My heart stopped. I mean, it was retail. It was these beautiful brands. And my heart went, I want to do that. Now, that's a feeling and that's a connection and that's a gut.
Yes.
And we are often told to push that away. Yeah. And I've always listened to mine. And I went in for the appointment and I wasn't overly confident in any form. I wasn't confident. And I said, I want to do that. I want to be in retail beauty. And I certainly didn't look the part. I want to be in retail beauty. And she said this, Angela, she said, Sharron Lowe, you have 30 minutes. That is not what you're going to do. So you'd be a very good teacher. Now, the truth is, in my life, I am a teacher. I'm a coach.
Yeah. But you're a teacher in charge of your own destiny because now you're running your own business and you're teaching on your terms. Not in an institution where you're teaching somebody else's curriculum. You're teaching your life lessons and your beliefs, which is where the power comes from.
And that's being a coach, and that's what I wanted to do. I came out completely demoralised. And part of my drive, and I always talk in any school that invites me, is what, and this takes my breath away. Angela, what if I'd listened to her? What if I hadn't had Joe and Margaret Lowe as my mum and dad? We didn't know how I'd get into Harrods. We got no idea.
Yes.
But we saw it as possible. Yeah. And I went home and my mum, bless, I always think this is beautiful, said, I think, baby, she just didn't know where Harrods was, which I think is hysterical, right? And she didn't negatively attack that teacher. She said, baby, I don't think she knows where Harrods is.
She just kept the grace.
Yeah.
She didn't criticise or judge. She just reframed, I guess, the negative, that could have been a negative situation. She diffused it and allowed you the strength and the space to carry on. Do you know, I think that's so incredible because the fact that I think that's one of the biggest things as a child growing up. If you have the support of your parents to say you can do it, then automatically that catapults you into a whole different realm of belief.
Yes.
There's so many children, adults out there that didn't have that. I remember my son came home from school one day and he was a little bit upset. This was back when my oldest son, who's now 16, was in primary school. And the teacher had said to him, I want you, or the class, I want you to draw a picture of how the future will look. So he drew a picture and he drew a flying car. And the teacher came over and she said, what is that? He said, oh, it's a flying car. She said, don't be so ridiculous. Cars will never fly. Put the car on the ground. And he scribbled it out and he put the car on the ground and he came home and I said, put the car back in the sky. If you think the car's going to be in the sky, then the car will be in the sky. And he redrew the car in the sky. Now, it's in a very short period of time, we've got flying taxis in Dubai. And it's that pinnacle moment, I think, in a child's life when the parent has so much influence that they can either say, yes, that's correct, your dreams, you're not worthy, or let's put that aside and let's just dare to dream. And the fact that you had that from, look, I've got goosebumps.
I have, just then.
Yeah, I just got a shiver.
Yeah.
So the fact that your parents had the insight without the training of psychology or all the awareness that we have now is so powerful that you had that behind you.
Yeah.
And I guess that was the foundation of you thinking, I can do this.
Yeah.
I have the power within me to create my own destiny. So how did that journey transpire then, from going and seeing, okay, I want to be in Harrods? What happened next?
Right. Can I just say as well, I think it's so beautiful what you've just shared and how we can impact children's lives. And, you know, I know that what you do, Angela, and it's, you know, you are very active, you know, in a business form and from your heart, inspiring young people. So I just want you to know you are an inspiration to me.
Oh, thank you.
And in all the things you achieve, the one that I feel the most inspired by is the work you do with young people, because we have that opportunity to form young souls and young minds and shape them. So yes, from me to you, it's beautiful what you do.
Thank you.
From there, I knew it's what I wanted to do. And again, humour. And one of the reasons I wanted to do it, I love business. I loved business because of my mum and dad.
That was, from your parents.
From my mum and dad.
Do you remember as a child when you would sit around the dinner table, would there be business conversations, problem solving, which again is programming that subconscious mind to, this is a possible future for me?
You know, this is such a beautiful podcast because I'm actually getting goosebumps and these revelations about my beautiful parents. This is really touching emotionally my heart, because it's not that I didn't know it, but I haven't had a conversation like this. And it is for all of those things. So mum and dad were manufacturing silversmiths, and I was born in Sheffield, which is the home of British steel and manufacturing. So there were mum and dad in business. So we would sit around the dining table and it would always be conversations. And I grew up with, you know, dad would put a chalice from a cathedral on the table and say, look at this, we're repairing it. And so I saw them work. We went at the weekend, we went to the warehouse with them. We helped fill the car.
Incredible.
We were family. And I dedicated my book, The Mind Makeover, to my father, who I lost way too young. I lost my dad when he was 64. And that was the first hurricane in my life. I mean, my life was irrevocably changed forever. He was my world. You know, again, we'd go to family situations and mum would say, don't you two just get in a corner. We were each other's best friend. And so I had that love of entrepreneur. And then I had an aunt and her husband, who was a bit dodgy, actually. I found out he was a little bit dodgy after.
Isn't it interesting what family secrets you find when you get older?
When you're little, nobody tells you.
No.
Uncle Tony's dodgy. Anyway, and he worked for Helena Rubinstein. Oh, my goodness. Angela, her bathroom. Oh, my goodness. So you'd go in the bedroom and she had complete displays like Harrods.
Wow.
Complete units. Now, I now realise she probably shouldn't have had them.
Yeah, exactly. You don't think that when you're little, though.
Yeah. And I just thought cosmetics. It fascinated me. So I went in, I did business studies. I went to college, I did business studies with beauty therapy. I knew I didn't want to be a beauty therapist, but it was business studies with beauty.
You needed the knowledge.
And, you know, I look back at that, and there was one part of the curriculum, and it was business studies. I was top student. I was super focused. I had everybody else who wanted to be in beauty ask me to do their homework. You know, when it came to beauty therapy, I loved it, but it wasn't my passion. So again, I built my business skills. And then I went in absolutely, you know, right into retail, and I went in as a beauty consultant so I could learn it.
That was in Sheffield?
In Sheffield.
Okay.
I took on Debenhams of Sheffield, and I got the energy, the passion. I didn't want it to be closed at night. And I went in, and I was very blessed. I don't believe in luck, but I believe we have blessings. And I was blessed that I worked with Fabergé. Fabergé were global #1. Irrelevant your age, irrelevant your gender, perform.
Okay.
And I went like a rocket. So Debenhams of Sheffield, and it won't relate to many people, but I have a picture of it, became #2 in the UK. Wow. And everyone came, what is she doing? How is she doing this? I went and did presentations, and I was creative. Everyone else said it's quiet. I thought, let's go and connect with bridal.
You saw which is entrepreneurial mindset. You're seeing opportunities everywhere.
And then I had this trajectory. I was the youngest ever in the UK area manager. And then I had 38 people. I've always gone outside of my comfort zone. I was 22 years old.
So you're now, I guess, an area manager of people that are much older than you, that have been in the job for much longer than you. And having to overcome that level, that not necessarily imposter syndrome, but that side that you need to be taken seriously, you need to be listened to. And I guess in some cases, people thinking, who is this girl?
Yes.
She's just 22, I've been here for 10, 15 years. Why should I listen to her? How did you overcome the age barrier of getting people to respect you?
I think that's such a great question, because none of us do it consciously. If we take on a role that's bigger than us, we either sink or swim.
True.
Right? Swimming was the only option for me. I was going to Phoenix. So I learned running. And I think they're the skills I built, were influence. And one of my core beliefs in life was formed there. I truly believe that everybody has the right to succeed. I truly believe that everyone should experience fulfillment. And I'm now called in the press the coach that adds millions to global brands like Chanel.
Yes.
It's the same principle. And that is, every individual I meet, I see them thinking, show me how I can shine. Show me how I can be fulfilled. Show me how I can navigate and be more successful. And because I come with that energy, it's not two people trying to win. I'm coming with an energy of I singularly want to grow the other person. And people feel that. They feel it. It's not tangible.
Because the ego is put aside. It's not let me try to prove to you how great I am. It's let me prove to you how great you can be.
That is a line. Can I use that? That's perfect.
We can trademark it.
We'll trademark it. Look at us two.
Sharron and Angela's trademark sentence. Her quote.
Look at us.
No, but it is. And that, I guess, when you're coming from that energy, then naturally, how can I not receive that? Because you've got my best interests at heart and you want me to do well. Yeah. But that is also very much your personality, because you are incredible. You are amazing on stage, and you have such a gift. You have no ego. I've noticed that the first time that we met and the first conversation that we had. You don't have that. You could easily stand and say, I'm this and I'm that and I've achieved this. You don't do that. You're very much, okay, this is what I offer, but let me see how I can serve you. Where is it that you're struggling? You don't have the ego that, we see with a lot of speakers. You don't have that. You're just so genuine. And I guess that's why people feel, that's why I warmed up to you so quickly, because instantly I connected with your energy.
Yeah. And that, beautiful, but the gift for me, when we have a good heart and we want to grow people, I'm feeling emotional. The gift for me, I didn't want to be top Northern area. I wanted 38 women to go home and experience a feeling they'd never had before. I wanted them looking in the mirror and going, I did that.
Yes, yeah.
And that's what I trigger in people. And whether that's an enormous audience for Chanel, I coached Chanel in the UK for the very first time in their history. They moved market share. And that's when the press said she's the coach who adds the millions.
What a title to have. I mean, there's no better title. So tell me how that journey happened. So now you're working as a beauty consultant, but you're obviously running your own team. How did you transition from that position into then getting onto global stages and training people like Chanel?
Yeah, that's a jump, isn't it?
That's a jump. Gigantic leap.
And everybody listening, it's like how beautiful your son saw a flying car. Just have belief, if you're listening, in your vision. So basically it went on. I was again very blessed that I worked for an organization that said we will promote you on performance. So I went on a trajectory within the organisation. I was area manager. I then became UK director of training. I fell probably mid-20s, late 20s, very much into my love of training, coaching, developing other people.
Just to jump in there, did the company that you were working for then help you develop those training and those mentor skills as well? Did they invest in training for you? Did they invest in workshops for you to go on? How did you develop those skills?
Okay, yes and no. And again, everybody listening, please assimilate this and listen to this for yourself. So, yes, they did, but they were very much the program of, we'll put you on this program, quite rightly, commercially, because then you'll be greater in this area and commercially it's viable. I realised, and I haven't shared this in years, so I'm blessed I can share it. I realised that a great challenge for me was presenting.
Oh, wow. That surprises me immensely.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't think presenting, you would be fazed by that.
And I'm
presenting as in public speaking?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I love that I'm sharing it on your podcast, because I don't think you've got this beautiful ability of drawing out.
I know.
Maybe because I love you. And, yes. And I knew that was a challenge. I was so young, Angela. We never did it at school. We never did debating. You know, I remember taking French, and I've worked very much in Paris and with a lot of French companies. And when we stood to speak French in school, everyone giggled. So, you know,
there's this feeling of people will laugh at me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that, but I knew it wasn't comfortable. And I've always been a strategist. I'm a business strategist. That's how I grow the brands. And I just knew this is uncomfortable. This is an area you're going to have to work on. And so I found Dale Carnegie.
Okay.
I went to a hotel that was like Faulty Towers in Knightsbridge. And I took my personal development seriously. And everybody listening, it's a very different world now, but bet on yourself. We constantly evolve. We constantly grow. And so I went, it was a 14-week evening course. And I put myself on Dale Carnegie speaker. And we stood, and the common denominator was nobody would pay for that privately if they felt comfortable on stage. And it wasn't stage then, it was in a training room. And I went through 14 evenings, 14 weeks, and then we were critiqued by the audience. So I put me through uncomfortable. And I really stress this point. It doesn't help anybody if you look at somebody else and you think they've got a natural gene.
Yeah.
I don't believe in it. I think we hone our skills. I work very seriously and determined and focused on my skill base. You know, I'm speaking, very blessed to be speaking at the Gladiator Summit on Saturday. And I have focused on that maybe solidly for over 2 months. I'm doing mental rehearsals. It's part of me because that's how I come through at a soul level. I'm not flippant. Nobody ever gets the same presentation. It is always bespoke, and it's bespoke to my audience. So my point there is take personal development seriously. I was 23 when I put me on that course. You know, I can't imagine anybody else I knew would have done that. No. And it also was really expensive for me. It wasn't an easy financial decision. I had to get myself to London and I had to go through uncomfortable. But on the other side of uncomfortable is I like this. And I learnt techniques. I read books. And every time that someone said there's a presentation, I said, I'll do it.
You volunteered.
And then I honed my skills. And with that and the strategic side, it became a winning formula. And I adored it. So I stayed in cosmetics, beautiful. I was UK director, Paris, UK, late 20s.
You were travelling between the two.
Yeah.
Which even back then, for a young girl, is quite unheard of, to be having this jet set life, especially, you know, one of us young girls from the north.
Yes.
Everyone kind of stayed in their own village and didn't move around so much. So you must have been quite the celebrity in your hometown, this, incredible young lady who's traveling the world and doing these great presentations. It's a big achievement for somebody so young back then.
Yeah.
Of course, moving around wasn't quite as accessible as what it is today.
I think, and interestingly, being a Sheffield girl and that sort of northern mentality, I didn't get that attention. I think that was very positive for me because we didn't have social media. I just did what I was passionate about. And the people who loved me anyway. And then I thought, okay, achieved a very high level at a young age. I think we need to take the business strategist out of Sharron and give it a little spin. So I could see this trajectory of always being in retail, luxury brands, cosmetics. So I thought, let's take this out for a spin. And literally, within that sort of 6 months, I was approached by Johannesburg Consolidated Investments. Now, that sounds rather boring. Let me tell you what it was, and then it sounds really interesting. So I was approached to be the UK director for platinum as a jewellery metal to work with diamonds and De Beers. Sounds interesting.
Now you've got my attention.
Now I've got your attention.
Some sparkles.
And this is such a great story. So I moved into the jewellery industry. Now, that was really mum and dad's business, Angela. Right. And I don't think I ever saw my dad ever. It was so, they were both proud, but he was so proud I was in his world. And I was writing articles in Retail Jeweller. And again, I had to learn. So then I had an association with Germany, Japan, and obviously Johannesburg. And that was a very beautiful part of my life.
And what were you doing for them exactly? What was your role there?
My role, I actually said, I think I'm Father Christmas, because they were totally funded by the mines. We were, as an agency. And so I was the UK training director, which meant any retailer that was representing platinum as a jewellery metal with diamonds. We would do events. I would do training. It was more sales and marketing. And that again just pushed my horizons. But a point I know you'll love is I was 31 years old and I was insured for £1 million. To wear £1 million of diamonds if I was on stage with security.
So they would sponsor, obviously you have to look the part and you're representing the brand.
Yeah. And I cannot tell you how
it's
natural I found that.
It's kind of a step up from the makeup brands, isn't it? Okay, here's your free lipstick.
Yes.
Here's your $1 million diamond ring. I'll take the ring. Thank you very much.
Yes. Oh, and that became my love of jewellery. But I also was very comfortable about it because I'd grown up with antiques and chalices. And they weren't mine. I was wearing them. And that was a phenomenal roller coaster for 3 years. I was going to Germany and speaking in Germany and I just thought it was natural to wear £1 million worth of diamonds.
It's quite setting the bar quite high for a husband to come along, isn't it?
Yes.
I'll take this one. Big gulp.
Yeah. Well, I always said I married Roger. One, because he was the first man I desperately at a soul level loved. And Roger isn't with us anymore. But I had, my love was so unconditional, complete. And I always said he was also the man who was never frightened of my love of diamonds.
Okay.
He had the most exquisite taste in jewellery and was the love of my life. The love of my life. So, yes. And then I went back into cosmetics.
So you've left, now you've gone cosmetics, jewellery. Why did you leave the jewellery industry and go back into cosmetics? Was it just a better position came up, or was that where your passion was? What was the decision-making process there?
That was another shift, because then I thought, right, let's look at this wider. I felt I'd got a great experience on retail, and I went to the library, and I thought, let's really look at the industry. We just couldn't pick the phone up and scroll. And I started to read about direct sales.
Okay.
Nobody did that. And again, I think it links to a lack of ego, because truly, Angela, people were very snobby about this. It was, of course, you've got brands like Christian Dior, Estee Lauder, Chanel. And of course, they're beautiful brands. They're my clients. But direct marketing was seen, and I can only say UK at the time, but almost like Tupperware.
Avon.
Avon. And by the way, I spoke for Avon 18 months ago. And
Are they still going?
Yeah, they are.
Oh,
they
gosh.
are. And 101,000 Avon representatives had access to my presentation of the Mind Makeover.
Incredible. Gosh, I remember Avon from when we were kids, and Mum would have it delivered to the door, and would tick off what we wanted.
Yes.
That's incredible. Gosh, all those
And
years
it's
later.
still like that. And that was
They still have the books that go to home, do they?
Yeah. And that was digital. We were in COVID. I
guess it saved people during then when no one can go out and about.
Yeah. And I said 101,000.
That's crazy.
And I did that from the office in my home. I mean, that's jumping a little. But I wanted to look at direct marketing. And that was fascinating for me because what it did was it grew my knowledge. It kept me visionary. Too many people can get sidetracked. Be visionary. I mean, now at the touch of a scroll, we can find out anything. But I was always want to investigate, learn, go a little bit deeper. And so I then took a very brave step and jumped. I was approached, but not directly, by an organisation that was based in South Africa, and it was a direct sales organisation, and they wanted a representative to open the UK. But it meant and this is the entrepreneurial side. I'd been corporate when I flew.
Safety zone.
Safety. I got my salary. If I was working in Paris, a ticket arrived.
Yes.
A car was there, and I pushed me out of that. Nobody else did that. And it was a little bit like going on the Dale Carnegie course. I mean, my boss at the time said, I think you're having a breakdown. He actually, John, I mean, he was so adorable, John. He said, I can't think of any other reason you would leave all you've got to do this. Truth, I'm not even sure I know.
Well, because you're a visionary and you want to do something that's not the norm. You want to push yourself out of your comfort zone. That's why. And how can you explain that to somebody? It's something within your personality that has this need, this desire to do better or do different or do new. It's just something that's within you. And I think as an entrepreneur, that's what differentiates an entrepreneur from someone that is not interested in running their own business, because they like that safety net. An entrepreneur is not about safety. And I was asked a question recently, do you think entrepreneurs are born or made? And I said, well, I do believe that we can develop entrepreneurial skills, but I think that slight personality trait where you're a risk taker, I think you were born with that. There's something within us that is not afraid. Not afraid, we're always afraid, but there's that extra sparkle that goes, go for it, push yourself.
You have explained that better than anybody has ever explained that to me in my life.
Oh, well, thank you. I take that.
Seriously, I'm absorbing it.
Okay, thank you.
And that's the other thing I would say to anybody listening. Absorb when you're given magic. We're too quick to move on.
True.
So many people, I've coached thousands of people, and they miss success. And it's not because they didn't have it. It's because they didn't stop and appreciate it.
I like that.
And you've just given me a learning. And I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you.
And it was pushing out.
Yeah.
And also, the story now is why I'm speaking at Gladiators, because it's that part of my personality. Because what happened was I had to fly to Johannesburg. I went to live there for a year.
Well, that's a big thing, because
big
that's
thing.
Not safe, and having all the stigma around.
Yes.
Especially a young woman on her own moving somewhere like South Africa.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah,
and it was in apartheid, but it was a South African-based, owner-based company.
Okay.
No way was she going to give the UK to somebody who had not been on the ground and done it. So I went from that life to arriving in Johannesburg, becoming a distributor. I was driving around Johannesburg. I had no sat-nav. I had no idea where I was going. She gave me a car. It was so bad, this car, right? I had to lean forward.
Flintstone's job.
It was. I had to lean forward to get momentum to actually go. It was ridiculous. I had an aunt through marriage who I love dearly, Maggie, and I stayed with Maggie. But I went and I proved myself. Then I came back and opened the UK. So then I learned about distribution, opening a shop. We opened a shop in Hampstead. I did that. And then I found, and this was the very first time in my life, Angela, this was then 18 months later. So I had a year in South Africa, then I came back to the UK. And I became very unhappy.
Oh, okay.
It was not where I wanted to be. There were behaviours in my partner that I didn't appreciate.
Business partner.
Yeah,
Okay.
and value. And it was her company.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't warm to them. And it was the first time that I had to dig very deep into Sharron, because I had to dig deep into that reservoir of self-worth that goes deeper than you think it can go, and says, this isn't working for me, and I'm moving away gracefully. And so I closed that, where before everything had been at the height, I'd been approached, I'd moved to,
you were kind of taken from position.
Yes.
Now you're moving away from your own choice. Yeah.
And huge, fantastic life skills, because the first going out there and having the courage, but the second is having the courage to say, this does not serve me. And I use that throughout all my life now. This does not serve me anymore. And so I came back I was in the UK, I was working in the UK, and I thought, right, what next? And I started my own consultancy. It was the most natural progression.
How many years ago was this now?
25.
25
Yes.
years ago.
I sound 103.
You do?
No,
You don't.
I know.
Well,
So,
you don't look it though. You look fabulous. So
Thank you.
Gosh, you've been running your own business
over 25.
years.
And
That's
I
crazy.
knew, and these were the principles that people can use. I knew what I wanted to be. I knew where I wanted to fit. I knew who I wanted my clients to be. And it became this whole 360. And I wanted to be the coach that grew global luxury brands, that were the ones in the book when I was 16, where that careers teacher said, be sensible, you can't do that. I wanted to be their global coach. And I didn't deviate. I didn't deviate. I got approached to do consultancy. One was with an enormous supermarket chain. Financially, it would have been so viable. Gracefully, I said no. And I basically built my consultancy. It took 4 months. And that's no time.
Which is nothing, though.
It's nothing. And I just got everyone that I'd built and known in my career, we put it out. And people came to me, and I kept very focused. I've spent 25 years being the coach to beautiful, beautiful brands and teams. I've advised them for many, many years. Chanel, Christian Dior, Estee Lauder. And then an enormous pride in my life is I'm the UK ambassador for all retail beauty consultants in the UK.
Which is a huge title to have. I mean, how did that come about? That's colossal. I know with when I've looked at what your whole journey, but what you've been doing the last few years and how you are so because to work for luxury brands anyway, you need to have a certain level of very, very, very high standards to even get into these brands. And you're not just working with one brand. You're working with multiple brands. Estee Lauder, Chanel. I mean, these are the biggest beauty brands globally in the world. How did you branch into those brands as an independent consultant? So now you're not working for a company, you're working for yourself, and to branch in and work for these huge organizations. How did that happen, and what was the journey from getting into the first brand to then moving into the other ones?
Great question, because it's a very different world now. Again, this was not social media. So we had a trade publication. I did that as a feature. And again, that's me being a strategist, me looking at the marketing. So that was one of the first things that I achieved, that I had a publication. And I did an article. Publication? I went in the publication.
Okay, so you are now a writer or
Yes.
a representative for the publication.
Yeah.
You've now raised... Which again in itself is incredible, because the whole, right now, personal branding is a big buzz and everyone's talking about personal branding. But back then, nobody talked about personal branding.
No.
But you had the insight to say, okay, if I go into this publication, I will be seen here, here, and here. This is worth investing in.
Yes.
Which is a huge insight to have.
Yes. So again, gifting. I had a feature, but I said I'd like to write a column. So I wrote a column, and that was all about the industry. And then I connected with and got my first client, and it was Estee Lauder. And Estee Lauder are so many brands. Estee Lauder, Clinique, I was part of launching Donna Karan. I've worked with Tom Ford. There are so many brands in the umbrella of Estee Lauder. And I went in and my only focus was that brand, that team, that strategist. How do we grow these individuals? Nobody else existed. And I think that singular focus, again, I've learned too many people butterfly. They're with you, but they're thinking about the next thing.
True.
I singularly focus. That was my only goal. And it was very successful.
And the fact that you've been on the ground doing that job, when you're going in now as a coach, everybody in those positions can instantly relate to you because you talk their language.
Yes.
You get what they're going through. You know the challenges, you know the pitfalls, you know the successes. So instantly there's this connection where, okay, she's one of us.
Yes.
She understands what we're going through and who we are.
Yes.
Which is not just, it's not just being a coach. It's being a coach with hands-on experience for your place of work, which is a catalyst to obviously being successful in that field.
It's huge because people are highly intelligent and they read energy. And so we can tell if someone's genuine.
You can fizzle out. You can suss out the fakes from the just here for the money or because there's a passion and they genuinely understand what I need.
Yeah. And my self-confidence was unshakable. I knew, like the sun will rise tomorrow, that I could grow those brands. And that's the power.
It is.
That's not an ego. That's a power. I'd done my apprenticeship. I had the ability to do this. I had ability to see them differently. And then it became word of mouth. I was very blessed quite a few years in where one of the major brands, which I wouldn't name, actually waited 7 months for me to work for them. And I felt that was one of the greatest gifts for me, that people were prepared to work because I didn't multi-brand. So, I was very respectful. It had to be a different program. One might be a leadership, one might be... But I only ever spoke on stage at that time if I'd done a strategic project. So if I was their conference speaker, I'd done a strategic project and grown the brand.
So you could talk from experience and authenticity.
And then I had an enormous life change, and I put this down to my beautiful husband, Roger, because I wrote columns. That I was then writing a column in Marie Claire. I'm really sounding 103 again, but I wrote a column in Marie Claire magazine, and I wrote a column in the Trade Journal. And I loved writing, and I always believed there was a book in me, Angela. And nearly everyone says, I think there's a book in me. And we went on holiday. And Roger said, I was sort of 15, 20 years, into the consultancy. And Roger said, you're always talking about the book. And he was my greatest supporter after my father. And he did this great sort of tough love. We were both successful business people who found a shared love. And he said, are you going to talk about it or do it?
Oh, okay.
And we had that sort of relationship. And he said, because you're in a position you can. And I was at the pinnacle. I was doing a project with 38 countries for L'Oreal. And anybody else thinks there isn't time. But actually, that's the perfect time because you are living your ability.
And your energy's flowing. Yeah, you're operating at that level. So let's talk about the Mind Makeover. How was the process from having, I guess, all this information now that's stored here to then condensing all of that and putting that onto paper and creating the book? What was the journey?
Well, it was overwhelming. I remember day one looking at a blank piece of paper going, why have you done this? Because there was so much. It was almost, where do you start? And I love, I don't know if you have them in Dubai, but I love those enormous Post-its. They're Post-its, but they're flip chart size.
Yes, we've got them in the office.
I love them. I have them everywhere in the house. And so I had those on the wall. And I thought, okay, how do we make this a reality? I'd never published. I didn't know the publishing world. I didn't know anybody in the publishing world. And I just, in a way, once I started to write, it started to flow. And the basis, I think the first thing is the title. And the title there's a beautiful story to the title, because the when I did get to a publisher stage, they'd got many different variations of the title. But I wanted to call it The Mind Makeover because we are shown how to make over everything in our life. You open a magazine, you look at social, TV, make over your home, make over your image, make over your hair, make over your partner. And I always say, Angela, if you've got to give your partner a really big makeover, get another partner. No, seriously, because
you're not aligned.
No, not aligned. Start again. And I felt very strongly the single greatest thing we own is our mind.
100%.
And why aren't we focusing that number one? Give your mind a makeover. And then the second part of the title is the answers to the best you yet. And that's what I believe. We are always our best yet. And that means there's always more. There's always the next step of the journey.
Which is so your personality. Always the next, moving on, pushing outside the comfort zone. So it sums up Sharron, who Sharron is and how she operates as well, which I think is great. It's brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But there's an enormous part of the book that says, just stop. And I often say, just feel your own soul. And put your hands on your soul, because you are enough.
Yeah.
All you are now is beautiful. All you are now is unique. There isn't another you. And so it's taking all of that love and self-worth and self-care that says, I am me. And I will be the best me yet. So it's very important to me, this. It's a core value for me. It's like when people say, I'll be happy when.
It's always looking outside of yourself.
Now, every single person listening, wouldn't it be beautiful, Angela? And I know you'd agree, if they can, or just put their hands to their heart.
Just feel.
And don't speak to anybody else, speak to you.
Yeah.
I am all I need. There were days where I've said to me, I'm doing my best. That's beautiful.
Yeah, because I'm doing my best relinquishes all the guilt, the shame, the not good enough, the pressure that we put on ourselves. We're doing our best with the skills that we've got right now.
Yeah. So the book is all about,
beautiful.
It's all about being kind to ourselves. I'm going to share this on stage at Gladiator, but what's our inner voice, our inner narrative? Most people are kinder to their best friend than they are themselves. And I have a way of sharing that on stage where it's not just saying it because people know it. I change people transform, and they'll come to me afterwards and say, that was life-changing, because I never felt, and that's a key word, we can know something. I never felt that I could be a better friend to me. And when you feel it, it's the catalyst for shift.
I agree, yeah.
We can all go around and say, I can be a better friend to myself, but it's 7% impact, it's words. When you feel, I'm excited, I'm going to be a better friend to me. Every second of my life, I will travel with Sharron. Every second of your life, you will travel with Angela. It's our number one relationship.
And isn't it sad that, and I always think that this internal dialogue that we have, most of the time, it's not even ours.
No.
It's from mom, from dad, from teacher, from peers, from someone else with their own limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And I really, and I'm covering a little bit of this too, not like with you, but my personal story, about how we can, once we integrate, and I so agree with you, the feeling with the intellect. Because intellect, yes, it's a different energy vibration. We can say it, but when we feel it, then we own it.
Yes.
And it becomes part of our cell system and our DNA, because then it's integrated into everything. The mind-heart connection is so powerful. Yeah. And you know that when you go into a situation and maybe you meet someone, or you don't remember what they said, but you always remember how somebody makes you feel.
Yeah.
And that's because it comes from the heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
So somebody that hasn't gone through any kind of personal development work again before, but they know that something in life isn't right. They're maybe not happy, or their relationships might be off or toxic.
Yeah.
They're not achieving what they feel that they're capable of achieving. How can they start to, first of all, identify this negative internal dialogue and these negative patterns? And then once they've identified what's not working, how can they slowly start to change them, to reprogram themselves?
I adore that question. That is such a powerful question. I wrote the book for that person because every single one of us at some point will be that person. And the way I would answer that, because I want people listening to think I've got answers. And everything starts in our mind. So the first thing is, where is your mind on these things? And I always say, picture an iceberg. Someone said to me recently, everybody knows the iceberg theory. No, they don't. And two, I've coached thousands in over 50 countries and they don't use it. And it's that massive shift. And I would say to everybody, because your question was somebody who hasn't done yet personal development. If you see an iceberg and we want to shape, you see the tip of the iceberg. Then I would say, what can't you see? That massive hidden part. Well, the massive hidden part is your mind. So many people focus on tip of the iceberg, what they'll say, how they'll look, their body language. No, you have to go within. So I would say to somebody, self-time, make the time. Get in a comfortable environment and look at the areas of your life. You choose your areas. Relationship, home specific, hobbies, your career, finance, you choose. And sit with yourself. Sit with yourself. How do you feel in those areas? Because it will give your listeners, that gives you the answers. And in that business situation I said to you, I sat with me and I felt unhappy. I didn't feel Sharron. It wasn't authentic. I mean, of course it was for a couple of years, but it changed. So I made the shift. It's no different. I've been there. It's no different. And then I think it's the narrative. You know, people say, I can't. You know, again, when I present at Gladiators, it's how we change the narrative, how we change the words. I've always used vision boards. My first was 8 years old in the swimming pool.
Yeah, of course, back when you were 8.
And when I married Raj, we moved into a very beautiful home, and I was 40 when I got married. And I had the garden excavated. It's the first thing I did. And I literally excavated the garden. I sold my apartment in London, and to the penny, Angela, to the penny, I excavated, JCB diggers came in, and I had a spectacular swimming pool put in. And I used to joke, don't ever divorce me, I can't take the pool.
Or I'll stay in the pool. You could
Yes.
move somewhere else.
Yes. Yeah.
It was your pool, right?
My
You had
pool.
it from 8.
My pool. That's a lesson for everybody. My pool.
Your pool.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic, because if the mind can't see it, then it can't create it.
Create it. But again, it's a journey. So going back to that question, narrative, I would come back to it all the time. You know, we can't say I can. You can't just say I can. You have to feel I can.
Yeah, because while you're saying I can, the subconscious mind, which is a bigger part, is saying you're lying. No, you can't. You're only saying it. You got to work on that deeper part, as you said, to then change that internal flow. Do you know? Again, this is one of my little gripes with the school education, because we don't talk about the mind.
No.
We don't talk about, I mean, they are getting a little bit better with counsellors and things like this in schools, but we cover this in our Junior Gladiator program. We say, okay, what is your mind saying to you? What is your internal dialogue? And we get them to understand. And one of the movies that I absolutely love for this concept is Inside Out. I don't know if you've seen Inside Out, but it's all about, it was directed, or it was written by a director who couldn't understand the changes that his daughter was going through. And he could see her mood and her mindset and her different emotions. And he thought, this is so intricate for a parent to raise a child that has all these different facets to their personality: anger, joy, shame, regret. How can I create this into a movie so a child can understand what's going on in here?
Oh, I've got to watch this.
You have to watch it. They've
Yes.
just released Inside Out 2, and I watched it with my kids the other day. I've been dying to watch it. And Inside Out 2 is about how this girl now, so as a child, they've got anger, they've got joy, they've got sadness, and a couple of others. But as a teenager, suddenly anxiety kicks in, and self-consciousness and boredom, because as the brain develops to teenage years, they develop these new emotions. And it's so fascinating. And I think if a child understands their emotional self, and if a parent can understand the child's emotional self,
Yeah.
then one, you don't have the conflict, because you can articulate, I'm feeling angry, rather than picking something up and throwing it on the floor and having a tantrum.
Yeah.
This is my emotion now. And also, you don't need to feel ashamed for anger. Anger is a normal emotion and we all have it. But what happens is they have an emotion, they get shamed for it, and then it's now a suppressed emotion and they don't know how to express. And I think my calling in life maybe is to get kids to understand not only entrepreneurship and finance, because as you said, everything starts in the mind.
Yes.
And if we can master the mind from a young age, the flow of life is so much easier than thinking, why am I thinking like this? I've got to fit in. I've got to people please. I have to change who I am to be liked. No, just understand what's going on inside.
Yeah.
And then...
But you see, this, I said earlier, I am so inspired by what you do with young people, and young gladiators, junior gladiators, it's so powerful because it's everything you've just said. And then we formulate, and people as an adult say, this is who I am. I'm an angry person.
They label themselves because they were labelled as a child.
Yes, and it's not necessary. I'm on an everyday journey to learn about me, but you're reaching people at this young level to express an emotion. And, it's something that I'm sharing. I've just sort of developed this as a concept because I think people learn in pictures. So I like pictures. I like iceberg. I like boomerangs.
We can see it. Yeah,
you can see
visualize.
it. Boomerang, throw out a thought, you will get back an emotion. So people are thinking boomerang. So I do lots of these. And I thought the other day, I don't know why it came to me. I was actually food shopping, which is quite unusual for me. And I was trying to find some granola. And I was in Marks and Spencer's in the UK. And you're thinking, how have we got to this, Sharron? But I picked the packet up. And I picked the packet, Angela, and I thought, if life was a box of cereals, on the back, we would only put the good stuff. Joy, bliss, happiness, courage, fabulous, sexy,
yes,
in control. We wouldn't put, guess what, on the ingredients of life? Anger, emotion, loss, hurt, disappointment, shame. They wouldn't be on the box of cereals. And I started to giggle. Now, I do this a lot. So I'm solo, on my own, shopping, and I'm getting the giggles.
Like the crazy lady buying her granola.
Yeah, she's very nice, but she's crazy. But I can see a picture. I am all of those emotions because that's the life experience. I believe I'm a spiritual being having a life experience. And I think because you reach children, I will have suppressed emotions as a child just because we wouldn't have had those conversations, and not knowingly. But I think the more we talk about it, the more we talk about mental wellness, the more we talk about our own mental health.
True.
Is enormous to me. It's one of my life passions because being kind to people, we never know someone's journey. And sometimes that connection, that energy, just can change somebody's day. But we have to feel, we can express, and it all starts in the mind. I always say what you think triggers how you feel. That triggers your emotion triggers your mood. Mood spelt backwards, doom.
Oh, interesting. I've never thought about that.
So told the boys that because it's a great one. Yeah. So if you don't take charge of your mood, doom.
Oh, interesting.
And
I like that. I'll use that one then. Let's trademark that. We will trademark that one.
Yeah, you have
well.
that one. I've had so much from you. You have that one. And then that triggers our motivation. And our motivation is either, people see motivation and think, oh, motivation, boom. No. You can be motivated to stay in bed.
Yeah, you can be motivated to be miserable.
You can, yeah. It's a decision. So all of those things, what you think and your emotions, come to the point where you're motivated, and your motivation is to act.
100%.
You know, when I changed Chanel's market share for the first time in their history, I changed the individual's perception of what they believed was possible for them. Each one. What I changed was their perception and their thinking of what was acceptable performance.
Yes, yeah. You raise the bar.
Raise the bar. Because they raised the bar. I have no power to add millions. They did.
Yeah, when you give them that level of awareness and that ownership, then it changes everything. And we say this to people when we do training in companies. Okay, it might seem like, okay, it's just another training session. The company have paid for someone to come in and do training. Here we go. You know, let's just yawn through the day. But if you invest this training in yourself, you may not be in this company in a year's time.
Yes.
If you raise the bar for yourself, the next company that you join, you'll be in a high position.
Yeah.
So all the time, don't see I'm doing this for where I'm working. I'm doing this for myself.
Yes.
Because as you're developing, as you're growing, so does your worth in the marketplace.
Yeah.
You're more desirable if you have more knowledge, if you work harder, if you're achieving more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, we need to do a part 2. So we have the
Yes.
summit. This
Yes.
unfortunately will
do.
air after the summit.
Yes.
But just before we wrap up, because I know for the summit, so you are a masteress in your trade when it comes to training all these big companies to, you know, increase sales and progress further. For the summit, you're taking a slightly different approach because you are sharing your personal story and your vulnerability, which is a different Sharron than what you've been before when you've been on stage. How are you feeling about this, Sharron, going on stage and sharing? Because it is a very personal story. Of course, I know the story. How are you feeling about sharing this? And what preparation have you done to prepare for this?
I think this is a beautiful pull this together, because I think in everything we've shared for your listeners, we are all the things on the cereal box, you know, seriously. And it's new, but it isn't new, because I'll introduce that, Angela, with for over 20 years now, I have run with the most incredible team in the UK, confidence building workshops for homeless young women. I've done it for 22 years now. We are an unbelievable team.
Oh, I love that.
And every year we create these goodie bags that are beyond, from all the cosmetic brands. I mean, we open a distribution centre and every homeless young girl gets a gift. But they come on, and that's where the title of the book, they come on the Mind Makeover that I do. That's been a very big part and is part of my life. And that's another facet of Sharron. So there are many facets of each of us. And I think when I've grown brands, I have always been Sharron. There's no question on that. But my life has taken a very big trajectory. And I know you know my story with love, but of course your listeners don't. And I think at this point, I hope I've shared enough of me and the cereal box that people don't just see Sharron was sprinkled with fairy dust on day one. Rubbish. Don't buy into it. We all have challenges, Angela, and we all have stories. And when I connect with your audience on Saturday, every single person will have a story. I've had stories in my life. I lost my father young. I've had stories. But Roger, my husband, was the love of my life. And, you know, I'm smiling because I do feel he's on a cloud looking after me. But he literally was, you know, a deeply beautiful soul. And Roger battled great challenges in the last few years of his life. You know, I had a love. It's interesting. My sister said you had a love that you rarely see. You know, I used to go up to Marks and Spencer and just kiss him. And I used to just get him and go, I just love you. And it was mutual. And Roger had enormous challenges in the last few years of his life that created inordinate trauma and illness. And Roger lost his life. And I lost the love of my life. But I also endured enormous challenges and enormous traumas with that journey. When somebody makes decisions in their life, it impacts and it ripples. And his illness was an absolute horror over a couple of years to see somebody you love. There were times, and there was one day in particular, that I believed I couldn't go on. And I went to make a coffee. And in my mind, I was going, I can't do this anymore. And you know, Angela, I think I meant life. And this almost takes my breath away even repeating it, because I feel I don't know that Sharron now. But that was that Sharron on that day. Yes. And I will always reach out and be there for anybody, because I think the depth I have now, we never know who somebody is.
True.
And I was flying in business at this time, so if you'd have met me in a different situation,
you would never have known.
But my heart was shattered, and I went to make a coffee. I can see the coffee machine, and it slipped from my hand, and it smashed. And I just want to share this to connect with your listeners, because some will be at the Gladiator Summit and some won't. And then I realised I was on the floor. I don't know how I got on the floor. My legs had gone. And everything was, I can't. And in that moment, I looked. And of course, what do? It's smashed. It's a mug. You throw it in the bin. And in that moment, the spiritual part of Sharron, I don't know if it was Dad on a cloud. I don't know what it was. But in that moment, I just thought, I can't put me in the bin. I am shattered, and my heart is shattered, and I can't put me in the bin. No. And I went into my office. I had tears running down my chin. And I went in my office and I got one of those big flip chart sheets, and I wish I'd kept it. And I wrote, and it was dripping off my chin. I wrote, I can't. And I put a massive cross through it. And people who don't deeply know me or who are listening might think, she's author of the Mind Makeover. I bet she wrote, I can. It was too bad. It was too dark. That wouldn't have worked.
There was no light at that point.
There was no light.
No.
And I wrote, and I came up, I don't know what to call it. It was Phoenix energy. And I got a pen and I wrote, then I must. And they're not words I'd used before. I must. And I had 7 flip charts on that wall. Wow. And they were everything I had to do. My life unravelled like a kitten playing with a ball of wool. You know, Roger's journey unravelled everything, and then his death. And everything. And the strategist, I don't know why I'm sharing this from my soul, and I realise now the strategist in me put the plan on the wall. This is what I need to do on the finance. This is what I need to do in his care. This is what I need to make this work. This is what I need to keep the business going. It was all practical.
But that survival instinct within you, which was that, at that moment kicks in and takes over, because the conscious version of you is broken.
Yeah.
And I can't function and move forward here. So this separate self, but is also one, has now overridden the system and taken you forward. And that's the power that we don't realise that we have until it comes.
And that's taken my breath away sharing with you, because we have to trust in what we can't see.
Yes.
Roger was the most deeply beautiful soul. The greatest gift in my life is his love and our journey. He will have been a part of it. My dad will have been a part of it. But in Sharron was survival. Yeah. And in everybody is that gene. And maybe my career path, I'm sharing things for the first time here, Angela. Maybe my career path, there was enough in my brain of years of coaching, years of strategy, years of marketing, that my brain had got a history of get this on the flip chart on the wall. Yeah. But the greatest part of my journey was my heart was shattered, completely shattered. And the Roger I love wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
He wasn't for a couple of years. And that was my life purpose, to put me back together. And I also on that day said, I will share my story. Now, I hadn't survived then. I hadn't survived. I'd fallen on the floor. And I remember saying out loud, with quite a lot of anger, I will share this story. And Gladiators is the first time I'm going to share it, because I did survive. And then I took my book. I got a new copy. And I wrote on the front, Sharron's new chapter. And I went back to page 1. And I used it as my roadmap for this particular part of my life. The other power that is within me, Angela, is I got it wrong so many days, but that actually was getting it right.
Yeah.
There were so many days.
There's lessons in the mistakes.
Oh, and I want people to hear that, because I didn't do no. I got it wrong, and all the thing, and wrong to me is right. I don't see wrong as a negative.
No, me too.
And that's where I will empower your audience, because we have to be part of the whole journey, the whole cereal box. And so I went through survival, and then non-negotiable. I was going to thrive. Life is very precious. And then I thrived. And then I started to co-create the life I wanted. And I'm sat here now in Dubai in your podcast studio. And I was meant to meet you and Darius. And I was meant to launch my story on your stage. And I will be sharing how we go from that day to thriving and co-creating. Because this chapter I'm in now is my greatest chapter for my soul. This is Sharron's chapter. And there was a point where I thought, why would you share your story? You can just move on. But that's not life. That's not the cereal box. I've got a gift. I've got a story, and I have to use this. It's my purpose. I have to use this for good. And the beautiful soul that Roger was, I sat, and this is very emotional for me, but I said, are you going to be okay with this? And I hadn't really felt his connection. And I felt I needed the okay. I needed his
approval.
And all he ever did was help people. There were so many people when he died that said he did this.
Now he's helping still.
Yeah. And it was a good soul, but he never shouted about it. He was so modest. And we all have a story. Mine's my story. And I'm going to use it for good.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Sharron, I can't wait to see you on stage on Saturday. But more than that, I can't wait to see the people that you inspire and touch, and the hearts that you touch by sharing your vulnerability and going through this story. It's just, anyway. You are incredible.
You are a beautiful soul. And for your listeners, Angela, if you're listening to what Angela and I have shared and my story, and it gives you hope, and it gives you empowerment, don't let those feelings go. Don't let them go, because there's no power in Angela's hands or Sharron's hands. There's power in the listener feeling we can do this. I've not shared, and I think it's lovely to share with your listeners, the first time I've shared this. And I have so many emotions at this moment in my body. I feel loss. I feel the loss of him.
Of course.
But I actually loss never goes.
No.
It's redefined. But I feel a lot of emotions. It's not an easy path. It wasn't, let's put it this way, this is not the path for the person who's not prepared to have courage.
Yeah, 100%.
This is the path for me. And I know my life now is doing what I'm doing. And there's a version of Sharron, and I'm really getting on with Sharron. You know, Sharron and Sharron.
I can tell you're having fun with Sharron.
Oh, really getting on well. And you know when Sharron's sad, I sit with Sharron.
And allow her to be sad.
I allow it. When Sharron is excited because life is phenomenal, I feel it.
Yes.
When Sharron is loving, I love. When Sharron gets it wrong, I say I'm sorry.
Yes.
And I will just say
Which is
this
really important, yeah.
to everybody listening. Every second of your life, you're with you. Make sure you're a great companion. Whatever is on your cereal box that day.
Love that.
Yeah.
Wow, what an amazing wrap up to an incredible conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, you are just you're just a fantastic human, a wonderful woman, so motivating and so inspiring. And honestly, I'm so grateful to the universe to bring you into our life a year ago, and I can't wait to spend the weekend with you. Wow.
Thank you for your love. Thank you for making me feel part of your family.
Thank you for being so authentic and
Wow.
opening up. Amazing. Thank you for being here today. Wow. Listeners, this is just such an inspiring story, because when we truly speak from the heart, then we resonate with other people and we connect with other people. And Sharron is one of those people that you instantly feel her warmth when you're in her presence, but not just that, you feel her warmth around you just by having her in your life. So please do reach out, whether or not you're having some personal challenges and you're struggling to navigate through those, or you just want to succeed in something, some element of your life that maybe you feel may not be working right now. Whatever your reason, I can guarantee you her energy is infectious. Her knowledge is just, I'm absorbing so much from her. She really is a gift from the universe. We will put all Sharron's contact details underneath the podcast, so please reach out to her.
Please.
And Gladiators, we will see you next time. We salute you.
Love to everyone.